Hey guys, hope all is well. This is episode 58 of the Rugby Recap. You have myself, Rugby Rich, as well as the key lads. First of all, man, how are you doing?
Doing well, Tim. Lot of rugby this weekend. We got finals with Super Rugby and the URC. The Boks are going to be back in action, bit of Barbars as well. There's plenty of rugby on, and it's going to be a hectic weekend. A lot of overlaps, unfortunately, which is why do we do this to ourselves, Tim? Why do we end up with games happening at the exact same time when there are obvious gaps that they could use instead outside of those games?
Yeah. You are right. I mean, it would be better for both of us as well. You actually live stream these games. If it was preferable towards our timing as well. So maybe they should do that. Maybe look at YouTubers and be like, okay, when will these guys be available to stream? Then let's set it towards. We'll do the kickoff times towards what they want. That would be better for us. I think
Wouldn't that be something?
That'd be awesome. That would be awesome. But again, I think there would be a big difference compared to what you would want and maybe what I would want. I'd be like, I wouldn't mind them in the morning. You'd be like, no, I would have it as late as possible. I can see that. I can see that. That's the conflict right there in terms of timings. But again, before we get into all these games, guys, make sure to click the like button below, subscribe to our channel if you haven't already, and let us know in the comment section just what your thoughts are on in terms of the international games that are happening this week, as well as the Super Rugby and URC finals. But let's just kick it off with the international stage. First one being England and Japan, as that is the game that's being played first. But this is a big one where it's one of those where the reason why it's actually bigger than you would think is not because of the actual game, but because of Eddie Jones. And it is really because of Eddie Jones. And it's the first time we're seeing Eddie Jones kind of really since what's happened, back in that World Cup campaign for the Wallabies, and how it was probably the worst campaign ever, really, for them. So
it was, yeah.
It really was. That actually is what the worst campaign was. So for this now to kind of go into, like, for Eddie Jones now to coach Japan, and for all the comments beforehand to say, I've had no conversations, not at all, but he is now doing it, and his first game is against England, which is a pretty big one in terms of the history there. What are your thoughts on this game? Do you think there's some kind of surprise here that Eddie Jones can deliver for the Japanese, or do you think the English could be too strong?
Well, it is going to be a very interesting atmosphere, and he's probably lucky that the game has taken place in Japan rather than England, because, he's had his, what's it called, the fingers in a lot of pies, or what's the saying? It's something like that, but
it's something around there.
He's been around, he's been around the block, old Eddie Jones, with the different sides around the world, and, Japan, that's somewhere that he has found success with in the past. Yep. England, as much as people liked to dislike him, at times, England were pretty strong under Eddie Jones. So, he might know a few of their tactics. Borthwick, of course, has changed things up a little bit since coming in. I think it's going to be an entertaining game, but I do still feel like England will be able to get the job done. Like, yes, we've seen those guys in the Japanese top league in action. There's a few other names that might head to Japan in the future, being Akira Ioane, just to name one.
So.
But for now, I think that the English lineup that they've gone with should be strong enough to get the job done. But you just never know in front of a Japanese crowd. We saw what it did for them when they hosted that Rugby World Cup. Like, they are one of those sides that like to feed off the atmosphere of a game. But I don't see them getting the job done here.
Yeah, it's one of those games where I would say automatically, you just got to give it to the English. But at the same time, Eddie's kind of put some kind of early kind of what's the word here? It's kind of like tactical kind of changes to the game, as the kickoff time normally you'd expect the kickoff time to be kind of late, and that's kind of what England would want. Whereas for Eddie Jones, he would want it much earlier, like around 12, just because it would be the hottest conditions, and that can actually favor Japanese. So I think what they've done now is they kind of go into the middle, and I think it's still in favor of actually the Japanese in terms of kind of the kickoff time. So we'll see what happens, because it will be a sunny day in Japan. We're going to have those kind of conditions for the game. So I'm looking forward to it. It's one of those where, do I think the Japanese team can, I don't know, just put something up here? I just don't know. I don't know. And again, by the way, guys, as we are recording this, the Japanese team hasn't been announced yet. The England team has. And again, they've made the decision to go with Marcus Smith as the 10 over Finn Smith there. Again, made a lot easier with George Ford not being kind of available through injury. So Marcus Smith does have the mantle in terms of 10 jersey. Do you think he can do the job there? Because again, it's one of those where you can kind of say this whole test actually is a warm-up towards what we'll see kind of in those tests against the All Blacks. So do you think you can do a solid one in this one?
I think so. I feel like a lot of people, of course, expect huge things from that man after seeing what he does at the Harlequins, but any time he was called upon throughout that World Cup, I thought he was solid enough. You know, he didn't get
Yeah.
a huge amount of minutes because it became the Farrell and Ford show, didn't it? But
Yes.
at the end of the day, like when Smith was brought in, whether that was at fullback or whether that was somewhere else in the back line, like he gets the job done and he's got that confidence about him. And sometimes that can hurt you, but I feel like up against a side like Japan, that will also be trying to play a little bit more of an attacking orientated game that will actually probably benefit Marcus Smith more than if he was playing a structured defence such as someone like a France. So I feel like stylistically he will actually thrive in this type of game rather than like I mean Japan could shut him down, but it's just hard to know what Japan are actually going to do in this game. Is it going to be a continuation of Eddie Jones' World Cup campaign, or is he now going to drag Japan through the mud, or is he going to kind of get that right and put them on the right track? Where's the next country that Eddie Jones will be rumored to coach?
Whoa. I mean, I'm trying to think what would be a cool nation for him to coach at. I mean, Japan is
I
actually
feel like people have talked about USA for Eddie Jones, like
oh
maybe.
no. I would hate that if he was like. And by the way, I'm only saying this because Eddie Jones, like I've always made this comparison. Like in terms of rugby, he has the biggest personality as a coach, and I compare him to like Jose Mourinho in terms of like football and how they're like the biggest personalities in terms of just how they kind of portray themselves. But like if you want a coach like that in the U.S., like and this is in any sport, by the way, like in the U.S. national team, the viewership of it, or just like the the kind of the media stuff about it, just goes at another level compared to any other country. So I would not want that for the U.S. to be fair. And again, like they're in a different position because they're obviously a developing nation. So it hinders them a lot more, I think, than what if you're going for a top kind of nation to what Eddie Jones has coached at previously. So I wouldn't. Oh gosh, I would hate that if that actually happened. But I'm trying to think like is there another nation like. No, I could never see Eddie Jones coaching like Argentina or like similar to what Checa did there, or I could never see him like one of the European nations, maybe like if he were the coach, I don't know, Wales or it's like I'm trying to think about a team like which like could use of a change maybe down the line if they were to
Can
like
they afford him? Is probably the bigger question.
yeah,
Because
jeez,
we've got
yeah,
to remember
it's-
Australia were paying him $1 million a year.
yeah, and the Japanese are probably playing him pretty well as well, so
I'd say so.
it's hard to compete actually. Yeah, now you say, is there another nation? I mean, you know what would be really fascinating? I mean, like, I'm not sure if this could ever happen, but Eddie Jones with France, that would be fascinating.
Mm.
I
I
would
mean,
find that.
to be
I
fair, the
would.
French
I would
coach is
find.
getting a fair amount of stick, isn't
Yeah,
he? So
I would find that fascinating if Eddie Jones were the coach of the French team. I thought, the more I say, I like that. But anyway, in terms of this game, though, just who do you think is going to win overall? Do you think the English will win, or do you think the Japanese?
yeah, I'm going England in this one. I feel like it could be close, but then at the same time, England could win this by 30 points.
Yeah, fair enough. Fair enough. I think I'm on a similar wavelength to you, where I'm going to say England to win this game, but I would like Japanese to kind of make it a closer game if possible. But yeah, I'm with you that the English should get the job done here and kind of prepare themselves for those two All Black tests. So yeah, again, moving on from this one, we do have South Africa versus Wales, the first test for the Springboks since that World Cup win in 2023. So yeah, it's a big one. And again, just to remind you guys, this isn't like their full kind of lineup really. Like not every player is available because again, there's still players involved in the URC, which we'll discuss right after this. And again, there's some players who are injured, but when you look at the team actually they've selected, it's still pretty strong. It's pretty strong. And I mean, I'm just gonna throw the stat up one before I let you get in here. I saw this that Evan Smith has it was like 146 caps to his name or something like there's like 100 and I think it was like 116 or something like that. And the whole Wales team has 115. It was like he beat him by like one cap just by him alone. So I was like, man, it just tells you something right there. Like they have a lot more experience in one player than the whole team combined. So it's not a good sign to see. But yeah, what's your thoughts on this game? Because I'm looking forward to it.
Yeah, it's going to be an interesting one because the only, I want to say, advantage that Wales have, if you can call it an advantage, is the fact that it's happening in England. And
Yes.
that's not even really that much of an advantage for Wales, you would say.
Yeah.
But, I mean, it's closer to Wales than it is if they were playing it in South Africa. South Africa, though, have got a very strong side. Heading
Yeah,
into this match, like you mentioned, there are quite a few players unavailable, a lot due to injury at the moment. I saw the injury
yes,
list is up to about 9 or 10 at the moment
yeah,
for the
sounds good.
Springboks, which is a bit of a concern. And I honestly feel like, yes, this game is about giving these guys game time, and yes, it's about getting a win over Wales, but for me personally, I think that it also has to be about preservation a little bit and avoiding any extra injuries. Because imagine
That's
if they
what,
lose like Etzebeth in
exactly.
this game, or
That's what
they
I was going to
lose
say.
Peter Steph
Yeah,
Toy, or any of those guys that could change a game for them when they are in that Irish series. Because Ireland have got a couple injuries of their own at the moment, and we don't really want it to be a match of last team standing. Of this is who we've had to put together because everyone else is injured. Because then that's when the excuses come in, as you know,
yeah,
Tim. As soon as you lose one or two key players, that's what everyone looks at. And, at the moment for
yeah.
the Springboks, no Kurtley Arendse, no Kanan Moody, the list goes on. No Jean Klein, no Ludiacha, no Stephen Kitsoff.
Yep.
You could just keep going. So it's going to be an interesting one. And I feel like the Springboks, we might expect to see a few different tactics than what we have seen last year. One thing we know about Rassi is he does like to mix it up and keep a lot of people guessing, including the opponents. And this Wales side just lacks a little bit of experience. So,
Yeah.
I think that the experience is going to take them through and probably get them a relatively comfortable win here. But I would like to see it be close, just to get a bit of feeling in it.
Yeah, no, I wouldn't mind that as well. To be honest, actually, in this game, it's one of those where yes, we would like to like win it by a long way if we can, but at the same time, this game for me, like I've said at the very beginning, is more of like a tester to kind of what we're going to do against Ireland, because that is kind of our July internationals that we're kind of putting our sights towards. And like you've already mentioned, there's a lot of players injured from both camps, really, and particularly in this game as well. I saw that Jack Morgan is actually now out for the Welsh, which is not a good sign, because he obviously missed out that Six Nations campaign, and now he's going to miss out on this game and the whole summer tour for Wales. So that's a big miss there for the Welsh, because he is an awesome player. He is really an awesome player. And if I heard that, like I know, like you can't really say this because of the games he's missed in terms of Six Nations and all that, but just if I had to pick a team right now, just regarding like how many minutes you've played, I would put Jack Morgan in my Lions team to face the Wallabies like in the following year. Again, I know there's obviously a long way to go towards that happens, but like he still has to play a lot more minutes. But he's a heck of a player, so it's gonna be a big loss for Wales in terms of this game. But yeah, for the South Africans, however, they made, like we've alluded to, a lot of changes to their side, giving a bit of a few debutants in there with Jordan Hendrickson starting at the 10 there. That's a big one that I don't think both of us called there. There's Edwil van der Merwe there, who's starting as the 14, which is fascinating because we kind of had the decision kind of, I think both of us said that maybe we put him as did we put him as the 11 or I don't
You did? I did not. I decided
did I
to
put him as a
have
14?
him out. No, you had Makazole Mapimpi as your 14
Yeah, that's what I
and then
thought. Yeah,
Edwell as the 11.
so you got it right then.
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay.
But,
So
yeah.
I want to make. I wasn't sure. Like that's okay. So there you go. At least one of us got it right, and from that aspect. But then the interesting one was that they haven't actually got McQuan Horn there in terms of the whole side. I was very. I'm a bit surprised that Juan Horn isn't actually in the game. Like it's. I mean, yes, Fasi's in there, which is awesome to see, and that's exactly what we both wanted. But man, I feel a bit. Yeah, just wow. But again, we're still seeing Sasha Flinberg in Gumozulu there coming off the bench, which is I like that a lot. And a lot of the people actually in the I saw in the comments actually of the video we did on your channel around the predicted side actually said that that's a play they actually should go with in the first place because he covers that center in 15. So yeah, the more I think about it, I think that's kind of the right decision. But yeah, is there anyone else? I believe they've given Ben Jason Dixon, I believe, is the other one. They're giving a debut to. But yeah, besides that, it's still a pretty strong side. They've gone with Estezen over Demi Delende in terms of that starting role, which is kind of good to see. I think when we both put Demi Delende, if I'm not mistaken, or did you put? Yeah, so it's one of those like where I think Estezen, the more we thought about it, was like, yeah, actually he deserves it. So good to see that he's kind of getting that starting place there. But yeah, overall, a strong side there for the Boks. And like you said, we should be able to do the job. But the more I think about it, actually, there's a lot of history actually with Wales in Twickenham and actually in terms of wins they've been able to get there. Particularly the ones I can only think of is against the English. But still, like they've got some good wins there in terms of like to what I remember is yeah, we'll see. We'll see what happens. I'm looking forward to this game. if I had to give a prediction, I mean, I think similar to you, I'd like this to be a close game. So I'm still going to favor in the box side, but I'd like it to be at least, I don't know, separated by at least 10 points. Let's just say a difference of 10. I can kind of accept for this, but yeah, yourself, like you're kind of similar to that, right? Like just kind of a closer game, or do you think they'll just be like wide open and chaos? Really,
I want it to be close, but
I'm
my
trying to be
brain's
generous
telling
here
me
as well.
about my brain's thinking about 53-13 in favor of the
I mean,
Springboks.
I wouldn't be surprised. Actually, I don't know why I said really. I'm not even surprised that'll be the case. But yeah,
Mm.
gosh, it won't
I
be.
hope
Yeah,
not, though. Like, if they can keep it within 20, honestly, for Wales off their Six Nations that they've had, and with the amount of players that aren't there for them at the moment, like, that's going to be a mini win for them, I would say. Like, I know that people will still really rip into them, but, like, at the end of the day, you can only do so much, can't you, in terms of,
yeah.
like, honestly, in terms of this is a massive, massive bold prediction / call, but there
Okay.
is a chance that we see Portugal stay a little bit closer in their game than we see Wales keep it in this first game because of the
Ooh.
outside of the international window. I feel like the Springboks have
Yeah, I
nothing to
can see
lose
that.
by going quite
Yeah,
aggressive here. And maybe there's a few more youngsters who get the chance in that Portugal game after the Irish series.
yeah, I can see
You
that.
know?
I can see that.
Who
It's
knows?
Yeah, because again, like you said, they'll give a lot more opportunity in that game
Mm.
against Portugal. So, but again, that could mean that there's more carnage because they're giving a lot of debuts in that game. But anyway, we'll talk about that one when it gets along to that. But I guess moving on towards the last one of the bunch, actually, we have literally following this game, literally right after this game at the same stadium, is Barbarians versus Fiji. I'm looking forward to this one. It'll be a good game because Fiji they've done pretty well in terms of like the players we've seen throughout Super B, as well as within Europe and the Premiership and all that. So I think a lot of them have done well for their respective clubs. But yeah, I'm excited. I don't actually. I think the one thing which I want to ask you, because this is an argument which we've both had a lot of times, but we haven't really come down to a clear conclusion. But I think we can do it now because for the first time, actually, I think both players are now available. So for that 10 position for the Fijians, are you going with Killen Muds? Or are you going with Armstrong Buvala? Because I'm interested to hear what you think on this.
Well, if you're basing it off the Super Rugby season, you'd probably go Armstrong Ravula because
Yeah,
he has had a lot more game time. I think Muntz only played about 2 or 3 games off the bench at
yeah,
the end of the season. If you're basing it off the potential and what we saw last World Cup from Caleb Muntz before he
yeah.
got injured, like that man had some really, really
He
high
was good.
potential.
Yeah, he
And
was good.
I honestly do think that if he was available for the Fijians earlier and he wasn't injured, who knows how they could have gone in that World Cup because they already did pretty decently. The fact that they made it through to those quarterfinals in a group
Yeah.
that with that first game up against the Welsh, that was an interesting one, wasn't it? A lot of people weren't too
Yes.
happy about the way that one
Oh,
went,
I
but
I was so gutted when they didn't win that one. But yeah, yeah.
I do think that they'll probably go same as the Fijian draw and go Armstrong, Ravula, Muntz. But then,
Okay.
like, this is one of those games that you can afford to try things because it's not counted as an international game.
Exactly. That's what.
So
Yeah. Yeah.
that's where I think you go with Armstrong, Ravula, Muntz in the second half. Just, you don't want to overdo
Okay.
Muntz at this stage because
Yeah.
you don't want
Yeah.
him to re-injure it. How many knee injuries have we seen
Yeah. Jeez.
get re-injured throughout just the Super Rugby Pacific season? They have to make sure he's 100% before they rush him back in, and the man's leg is strapped up extremely heavily at the moment when he plays, so
Yes.
I'm
Yes.
surprised he can even bend it, let alone run on it. So, yeah,
Yeah.
I would still have him off the bench just for now, but maybe in July, that's when you start letting him get a few more minutes.
That's fair. That's fair. But yeah, in terms of the Barbarians, of course, they have a lot of players they've included in this side, and actually with some familiar names. Actually, a few from a lot from like Japan, a lot from France, a few from Super B even. And there's even there's a there's obviously the main one, which is Sam Whitelock, because he's playing officially his final game in rugby. So it's a big actually occasion for him, and he obviously captain the side as well. But man, there's a lot of good players in this team. Like, I mean, I could maybe I'm wrong in saying this, but out of all the Barbarian sides I've seen in like the past like few years, this would arguably be the best on paper. I think like for the players they have, like there's a lot of good talent here. Like there's like, I mean, I was looking over this back line, like, I mean, just hear this back line out. Like, they have like, okay, let's just say they go with Ben Youngs as the starting one, and they go Fergus Burke as the 10. They go Lester Fananku there as the 11. They go, I mean, you can do Vavaka there as the 12, Fiku as the 13, or you could put like Jimmy Joseph as the 13 and put Fiku as the 14, and then you have Chepiaki as the 15. Like, that's incredible. That's a dangerous back line. That you could make the case it's probably better than what Fiji have actually. So it's mad. That's just mad. I mean, what are your thoughts on this in terms of that Barbarian squad that they have?
Well, they've got potential, and I feel like it's definitely not an easy like kind of matchup for Fiji to jump straight into. The good news is they have been, of course, playing in Super Rugby Pacific, but you know, it's the kind of backline that if it gels, you are going to be in a little bit of trouble, and Fiji could find themselves under a lot of pressure. But that's kind of a good thing as well. You want to go into your first game unsure whether or not you're going to get an easy win. And like you mentioned, Sam Whitelock's last game, I'm sure he will have the kicking tee at some point throughout that game. Unless, of course, it's extremely close and they may not even want him to go for the kick just in case. You know, if the Barbarians need 1 point to win and the kick's about 25 metres out, are you giving it to Sam Whitelock?
100%. 100%. Well, that's like, man, he has a boot on him. Have you not seen his? Oh, he does it every time for the Crusaders, like in the past. That was like his main thing. You got 50-22.
I must have missed those games.
Yeah. Even though the rule wasn't probably invented when he was still playing. But no, he did a lot of those. But no, I mean, look, this game is actually pretty exciting just because there's also a few names in there which I haven't seen for a while, actually, because, of course, they play in Japan. But I mean, like a player, for example, like Lachlan Boshier, like I haven't seen him play since he was in Super Rugby. So it's going to be kind of cool to see just how he gets along in this game and just kind of, I guess, if he's the same level as same level as what I saw previously, or if, I don't know, he's gone up a bit, or if he's just kind of the same player. So we'll see what happens from his standpoint. I mean, other ones, there's Zach Mesler there. He's always done pretty well, I think, from a Barbarian standpoint. I mean, he was awesome when I went to watch live Barbarians versus All Blacks XV. He was like probably the man of the match, really. There's Fabian Holland, again, the one of the Super B players there, which is interesting to see him kind of in this team. But actually, the more I think about it, it's kind of good to see him actually, because you don't see a lot of younger players like him in terms of Barbarian sides. It's more like when you're at kind of at the mid of your career and above, where you kind of get selected for a Barbarians team. So to be fair, that's kind of cool from his standpoint. But
I guess for him as well, the fact that he's not eligible for the All Blacks, I think makes it easier for him to be selected as a young player. You know, a lot of these guys like have no chance of getting selected for the international sides in the nicest way possible. So I think that's some of
playing for the international sides actually in this game. Like, I mean, that's the other thing. Like with France, like they're putting like Gael Ficou, like he's going to start for France when it comes to those games.
I feel like they're using it as a warm up, aren't they? The French
that's
players.
The good thing about this game. Well, there's like different reasons why players are playing this, and that's kind of like what I like about the Barbarians. Like it kind of helps players warm up. It helps players like end their career. It helps players like just that sounds wrong, by the way.
That sounds really bad, doesn't it?
It sounds really bad. But like they kind of like do a final finish really in terms of what has been a great career. That's kind of the way I could say it. But no, it's just an awesome experience, an awesome team, really, to be a part of. So yeah, I'm looking forward to this game. In terms of like what you think, who's going to win, which way are you swaying towards?
I think it's going to be high scoring. I think is one of the main things that we can confirm for this contest. I would be very surprised if there weren't tries being scored every 5 to 10 minutes throughout this contest. So I'm not going to give you a prediction of who I think is going to win, but I'm going to say 8 or more tries in this match.
Okay, I like it. That's a good way of saying it. Okay,
safe answer.
I'm gonna say we're gonna have 10 tries within this game. 10 tries. That's my prediction. But anyway, we'll move swiftly on from all the international games on to the finals that we have for this week. First one being the Super Rugby Pacific final with Blues versus the Chiefs. To be honest, I should have brought my Blues jersey out for this. While I'm speaking about this game, because I mean, I'm just going to say straight up, the Blues are going to win. They're literally going to win this game. And I'm only saying this, guys, with confidence now, even more confidence than I had before, because of the lineup that we just posted today, that Patrick Tuipulotu is back. Somehow he, I don't know, maybe faked his injury, or the Blues are faking his injury for a while, and he now comes into the final and is fully prepared. But no, in all seriousness, it's also to have him in this game, because it just elevates the Blues to a different level whenever he plays. And man, I'm looking forward to this game. But yeah, what's your thoughts in terms of the lineups that you for both sides? Like, what do you think are kind of like the positives, but also kind of like, I guess, areas in which can be targeted? So yeah.
Well, the targeted area for course for the Chiefs, you're looking at that hooker because Tyrone Thompson, don't get me wrong, brilliant player, but Bradley Slater, we don't know if that man can actually walk at the moment from last week. So
Yeah.
that's a bit of a concern. They obviously had a bit of a ring round Hamilton and they couldn't quite find another replacement in time, but Sean Stevenson
couldn't
back.
come up? You couldn't come up to Hamilton?
No, I don't really play much hooker anymore.
Oh,
I always consider myself a bit of a hooker, Tim, in both
okay.
regards, because I feel like I could always, get the throwing in, but yeah, the other one I won't tell you about. But yeah, this backline for the Chiefs is just looking very strong, isn't it? Like they've got the potential. Their loose forward trio, I mentioned about it on my lineups video. Finau and Jacobson at the moment are in a competition. See who can get the most cards by the end of the season. And,
that's for sure.
That's a concern. And that is an area that might be a bit of a target as well, knowing for the Blues that if they rack them up a little bit and annoy them, then they will snap because they have all the time in the past. The Blues, I am a little bit curious about Dalton Papali'i, only because he failed his HIA last week. But he is now able to come back in. He also got interviewed after the game, which I found a little bit weird because in the UFC, if someone gets knocked out, they aren't actually allowed to interview them because, of course, after your brain's been scrambled, you aren't aware of what you're saying fully. So they got in a lot of trouble for interviewing players who were concussed. But Papali'i apparently wasn't. He was fine. He said it was a bit of a knock to the teeth, and now he's sweet as can be. But Oscar Satutu, is he going to get it? That's the big question. Is he going to get that record, Tim?
Yeah, but as soon as you scored that try in the semi, I was like, whoa, it actually could happen. Like, I was like, I didn't actually think he would do it, like, to be completely, because, like, the record is pretty tough to beat. Like, when you have I think it's like Malcolm Marks and Fafanga who are tied on 12, he's now equal that record. It now makes it so, like, man, he could be, the most, the best try scorer in terms of forwards in history in terms of one season. So it's kind of cool if he is able to kind of accomplish that. But at the end of the day, I think Hugh even said himself that the first job of the game is just to win the game. The record is like, that's something which can kind of be kind of sought after kind of in the process of the game.
We'll see. If he's got the chance 10 meters out, I can tell you right now that boy ain't passing. He is going to try and get over the try line.
He'll score the try anyway, and we'll win the game. So that's all we have to do. That's all we have to do. But also with Akir, this will be his final game for the Blues as well, and luckily it's at home. So it's kind of cool to kind of see that he'll be playing his last game in a Super Rugby final. That's kind of like cool to do it. And again with Patrick Tuipulotu, like even coming back from his injury, he was like, "No, I have to play this game." Because that's kind of like the reason why he's back in time for this. And it seems like, I'm not sure kind of like how he'll be assessed going forward from this game. Because again, like, there is, he is likely to be selected for the All Blacks going forward. But it's interesting to see like kind of like the time frame in terms of how, if he's going to be kind of fully fit in time. I suspect that going off this game, we'll have a lot more information, kind of how many minutes he can play in this. But yeah, no, he's a heck of a player. And it's a big bonus for the Blues in this. I think if you just say a key battle, like what's the key battle in the game you're looking out for in this one?
Ooh, key battle. Well, of course, the backs are going to be very important. I honestly do think it is Satutu versus Satiti as the number 8s. I feel like those two at the moment are both heavily in All Blacks contention. And I know that Wallace Satiti, some people would say that he's very new and maybe he wouldn't quite be ready. But, I honestly would pick him over Jacobson at the moment because Jacobson's discipline just hurts so badly throughout a game. And, don't get me wrong, I thought Jacobson was actually playing a lot better at 8 than 7, but with the way that the team kind of balanced out, they did have to make that transition, and that actually opened the door for Satiti to probably take his All Black spot. But yeah, it's going to be interesting. Of course, Plummer versus McKenzie, there is also an argument that those two could be in the running for the All Blacks, and both of them, not just one. There have been talks of Plummer.
It's actually crazy to say that.
I know that you don't like that much, though, for Plummer. Because you have a bit of hurt feelings from the past, don't you?
Yes, but at the same time, I'm also glad he's in the conversation. Like, it's actually deserved. Like, because he's had a good season. This has been his best season for the Blues. So I honestly believe he should be in the conversation. It's just one of those where Do I think he's like going to get in? I'm just saying this from a very truthful standpoint. I just think there's other positions in the squad that are more of a priority, like in terms of like selecting players. If you get what I'm trying to say, like I don't think he'll miss out from a positional standpoint, not for how good of a season he's had in terms of form. But man, he's a heck of a player. He's done actually really well this year. So he's definitely going to be in the consideration of the All Blacks. If you make the next step, we'll have to wait and see. But I think in terms of the other kind of key battles that I'm looking at in this game is the 13 actually between Reiko and Anton Brown, because both Anton Brown it's definitely been the kind of more impactful player, you could say, for the Chiefs than what Reiko's done for the Blues. But hey, Reiko, he always comes clutch really in kind of like in moments in terms of like games when he's needed. So maybe this is the game where he stepped up for the Blues. Well, we can see from that standpoint. But another one is the 15 jersey, because you have Stevenson, who's now returned back for the Chiefs just in time, because again he made that kind of last minute decision not to play in that semi, and it paid off at least because he was able to play in this one. But he'll be going against the likes of Perifetta, who is another player who's up in the debate, kind of if he can make the team. It's going to be fascinating to see what happens from that, because I personally think that's the key battle between Stevenson and Perifetta, because I think only one of them will get selected, whereas I think I was actually going to say, is it a higher probability both of those get selected, or Wallace at TTN's a 2-2? I don't know. I think there's like a kind of it's an interesting debate that. But
well, the problem you've got with Wallace, Wallace, yeah, I had to think about it for a second. All I could think of was Wallace and Gromit, and I confused myself. But it is his name. And Hoskins, both of those guys are specialist eights at the moment. Or, I mean, to be fair, Satiti's so new, he could actually maybe play somewhere else that we don't know about. But,
exactly.
I feel like for them, they are specialist eights, whereas for Stevenson and Perifetta, they both offer different positions as well as the position they're playing. Like, Stevenson can go wing and Perifetta can go fly half. So, they're probably more likely to pick two versatile players than two specialist guys, because where are you playing Ardie Savia? That's your other problem that you've got at the moment. Debate. Is he also your specialist eight, or is Razor going to put him back to his 7 jersey? What's he been playing in Japan, Ardie Savia? Has he been 7 or 8 over there?
He's been... I can look it up right now. I can look it up quickly right now if you just give me a bit of time, because I think he's been playing 8. I would like to think he's been playing 8, because that's where he's been playing for the All Blacks, and if they were to change it, I would have been pretty surprised. But at the same time, like, it depends on kind of like, it really changes the team in terms of which players you select. But here we go. So he's been playing at 8. So
see, that's a problem in terms of trying to sneak another guy in there. Like, that probably makes the chance for Satiti a little bit lower. But you never know. What's Razor thinking? He can.
Yeah, but this is where it also comes down to the other players. Like, yes, Artisavia is probably the player that you have to like make sure he's the best, how he can kind of be the best, because he was world player last year. You have to remember this. Like, do you want to bring him out of that 8 position to kind of put in another player there and then put him in that 7 if that's the case, or do you want to put him at this, or you want to keep him at the 8 when we have so many options down at the 7, like through Papa Lee, through Jacobson, through Peter Lackguy, through who else? I'm trying to think of names quickly. Christie, through there's probably one more I'm forgetting, but there's a lot of names in that conversation. So it's one of those where like it really does dictate. Like, he is kind of the defining thing in terms of what do you think? Is he a 7 or is he an 8? Because I had to make that choice, by the way, in the video I did on my channel. Like, I considered him as a 7. What are your thoughts on that? Are you with Sevilla, or just 7 or 8? Like, what do you think?
Well, I think that it's going to come down to really what Savia and Robinson decide on, because I don't think it's going to be a part-time thing. Whatever they decide, I think, is going to be the plan moving forward. Okay. So if that is to lock him in at 7 rather than someone like a Sam Cane, then I think that Savia would say, yep, I'm keen, because he just doesn't come across as the type of guy who would say, I can't play there just because he has been there for so long. But as someone like a Peter Lackguy going to also have a chance at number 7
he's awesome.
for this year. Like, it's such a tricky one because they have got options. Braden Yossi is another guy that could even be a little bit of a bolter with the versatility.
I like him as well. He's a good option because he can play 6 or 8.
There's too many good options in that loose forward trio, isn't there?
There is.
Which, I mean, it's not exactly a bad thing to have.
No, it's an awesome thing to have. the problem with it though is that you can only select 32 players, whereas like if you're doing like a rugby championship squad, it's actually a bit wider in terms of what they've normally selected. Like it's like 33 or 34, so you can put in a few more names in there. But for now, for the July Internationals, it is 32 for what the All Blacks are going for. So you got to make those tough decisions. So, but yeah, in terms of this game, in terms of the Blues Chiefs game, which way are you kind of favoring towards the Blues or towards the Chiefs?
Well, if you remember rightly, Tim, I normally use a certain system when it comes to games involving the Blues. And because of how happy it makes you when the Blues win, I often back the side that they are up against so that you are even more happy the next week.
Awesome.
You know?
See,
so
that's great from you. That's awesome from you, man.
I am going to go with the Chiefs, you know? And honestly, like, if Tyrone Thompson has a good game, I can see them being really competitive in this contest. Like, I know that you are confident, and
I'm very confident.
You rightly can be because there's no Crusaders to knock you out this time. But,
Exactly.
you know, there's still a chance that, you know, both of these sides didn't have flawless games in their last performance. The Blues were pretty strong up against the Brumbies, but then some people would say that they should have won by a lot more than they did. But, you know, it's going to be very intriguing. The big question for me is, are we going to see Rieko Ioane score a try? Because it has been almost 400 days since that man has scored for the Blues.
Yes. Yeah, it's one of those where, like, I mean, you have to obviously put a bit of context in that because he's had an injury and then, like, 2 concussions where he's been out for 3 weeks.
400 days, Tim.
Okay. I mean,
that's your All Blacks 13. You know?
He's missed more than a month and a half out. More than a month and a half of Super Rugby in total.
Still like 9 games, isn't it?
I'm just saying. He's missed that much. But yes, I do agree. He has to kind of get on the board somehow. I know from a try-assisting standpoint, like he's actually done pretty well from that perspective. But again, you need him to score tries. That's what Reiko is all about. He has to use that speed for like something else than try-assisting, which is also good to have. It's good to have that, but we need to see him score a try. So I do agree with you.
The situation you've got is, are there other 13s that can offer try assists? And I think yes. The thing that made Rieko Ioane unique a little while ago was the fact that he was able to score so many tries from that 13 position and use his pace to his advantage.
Is the big thing. Like, there's not a player quicker than him than that.
You know, Billy Proctor, is he getting the nod ahead of Rieko in the All Blacks because of what he's been able to do throughout the season? I'm going to quickly look at a little head-to-head, Tim, because we do love a head-to-head.
Yeah, I can look up here as well.
So, Billy Proctor and Rieko Ioane for the season.
Yeah,
Riko's played 12 games with 63 minutes on average, yet still hasn't scored a try. Billy Proctor has got himself 3 tries. Billy Proctor's made an extra 200 metres. He's beaten an extra 20 defenders, had an extra 8 clean breaks, and Rico's only had the 1 extra try assist, 3 compared to the 2, and the tackling percentage is 8% higher for Billy Proctor. Those kind of numbers, they don't shine brightly for Rieko Ioane, which, like, of course, like you said, there's context and whatnot in terms of the fact that the Blues are still in the competition and they might have a title under their belt. But, you know, it just makes me a little bit concerned that he's lost his X factor. Well, not so much completely, but he's just lost like 2 years ago when people, or maybe even 3 or 4, when people would look at Rieko Ioane and go, that man's a real problem. We need to try and shut him down straight away. And now teams do shut him down, but he doesn't seem to be able to get through and actually create that magic that he used to be able to. Is that because he's actually a winger?
Well, but this is the thing, though, is that I think he's still, you got to play him as a 13. I just think he offers you that unique, like, his pace is the one thing where there's no other, like, he's quicker than Billy Proctor by a country mile.
Where are the tries, Tim? Where are the assists?
Yes, but this is where you have to take the context and, like, yes, by the way,
the reason I'm doing this so much is because he is your profile picture on Discord, so he's my
favorite player, guys. So I'm gonna back him day in, day out. But also there's a bit of context around him which people just forget, like where he's been injured for a large part of it. And again, that's a slash with concussion because they are different. But you also have to remember that Reiko just has the experience. That's like the one thing that kind of is in his favor, really. And then you have to make those kind of decisions where there's a player in form, or do you pick the player in experience? And in this case, look, Billy Proctor has been incredible this year. Like, he's been incredible. And the thing, what helps him even more is that you'll partner up with the 12, which is Jordy Barrett. So that kind of elevates his case even more compared to like another, like if I was to say Anton Brown. Like you could say Billy Proctor's had a better season than Anton Brown, and also he would be a better combination, because we've seen this for the Hurricanes. But the thing is, because we've seen Jordy Barrett and Reiko play together, and they've like looked pretty good together, that's where the argument kind of begins to shape. And it's going to be fascinating to see kind of who they go with. Again, remember, this is a whole new cycle under a new coach now with Razor. So he can make the decision, you know what, I'm going to go with a new combination there. Go with Jordy Barrett, go with Billy Proctor, or even maybe Anton Brown. Maybe by the way, I wouldn't mind Anton Brown. I think I've made this comment earlier on where I think he's actually had one of his best seasons for the Chiefs in a long time. Like, yes, I know he's been very consistent throughout, but this year, like he's actually up to his level, I think. So I wouldn't actually mind him as a 13, in all honesty. But actually, but you are right. That is a key argument that in terms of that battle there. But yeah, like just to kind of say, I mean, I'm definitely going for the Blues. That's without a doubt. I'm going for the Blues in this game. Do I think it'll be a close game? Yes. I'm just not sure how much it'll be separated by. That's the problem. Like I don't see this being a game like where it's going to be a 2-try difference. Let's just say that it's not going to be a 2-try difference. It'll be like under. I would like to think under like 10 of like what the separation will be between this for either team to win. I think that's like I would expect really in this game. But
let's just hope the penalty count is under 10 per team, because Nick Berry's in charge of this one. So we do hope for.
I actually haven't checked that. Is it Nick Berry?
He is.
Oh, your favorite referee. Oh gosh, this is all.
He's an intriguing specimen.
He's your favorite, right? Like,
he's my favorite one to talk about. You know, because
you wanted an autograph from him once, right? Is that?
I feel like it'd be that he's probably a little bit similar to Nick White in a way. How he's probably a very nice bloke when it comes to outside of the game, but he just gets a lot of stick during it, doesn't he?
Yeah.
But it's going to be interesting because, you know, both of these sides. I know that this is going to sound harsh, and you might shut me down for this, but both of these sides can show really bad signs of ill discipline.
Yes.
And almost not in the nicest way possible. A little bit dirty around the sides of the breakdowns, you know, like we see a little bit of off the ball stuff, you know, and that is the kind of thing that I feel like will get pulled up in this game a lot more. Like, you won't be able to get away with anything. You know, Jacobson's going to be having a nightmare because they'll have 10 cameras on him.
I can think only more from a Chiefs perspective. By the way, I'm trying to think of Blues. Like, if you can tell me, let me know. I just can't think of like. But you are right from a discipline standpoint. Both teams are definitely they need to work on that. But again, the Blues, of course, they have the better tackling thing, so that goes into their favor. But again, even like Papa Lee said that in his post game interview, like, we've got to work on discipline. It's something which, yes, we've done well to kind of manage games and our defense has done well, but we can't be giving penalties away to kind of let the team kind of get into our 22 or kind of let them have the opportunity. So they have to definitely be careful of that from both teams' perspectives, because you definitely don't want to give like an early try. And that's what the Blues have done in the last 2 games. They've scored 2 early tries in the last, or 1 try in the last 2 games. So it's one of those like where you gotta manage that from a Chiefs perspective. But for the Chiefs, I mean, like, I'm trying to feel like you gotta hope that McKenzie's on the same kind of level as what we saw in that semifinal, because the Chiefs were excellent in that game and kind of broke down the Hurricanes. I mean, the Hurricanes just. What let them down in that one was really the error counts. Like that they were like their own worst enemy really in that game. So hopefully we don't have one of those games in this, like where both teams are on point, they're both in form, and just it's an all-out battle. So yeah, we'll wait and see. But anyway, we'll move away from this final onto the next, which of course is now Bulls versus the Warriors. Pretty excited for this one. We have to like just first talk about the actual results, because I mean, Bulls, yes, we kind of both predicted that the Bulls would win their semifinal against Leinster. Again, there was a tough game to kind of predict, but we did favor the Bulls. But I think both of us said Munster to win that game against Glasgow. And man, that was a big shock to actually win that. So just first, what's your opinion of that game? Kind of, because we'll go on to the final. But what was your opinion of that?
Well, they stepped up Glasgow in that contest, and it was that kind of defensive orientated game that I mentioned about how I said it could be quite a low scoring one and going a bit down to the wire, because both sides were tackling it around that 90%, if not a little bit higher for Glasgow's sake. But yeah, it was just a really tight game of rugby. That little errors were actually the difference at
Yeah.
the end of the day. Like the little mistakes that led to opportunities were pretty much the only thing that could split those two sides. And the thing is, would Munster have done better playing in South Africa off their record this season? Maybe. But have Glasgow currently built up enough momentum that maybe there is still a chance? Like Sione Tuipulotu, he said after the game that he was looking forward to going to South Africa because it's actually going to be slightly warmer weather, which they haven't really been having at the moment in those Northern Hemisphere games. But the problem is it going to be too hot? And is the altitude going to get to Glasgow in that contest as well? Like, there are a lot of factors, but I think just making it to the final, Glasgow, we got to remember, if they had one more win throughout their regular season, they could have been hosting this final. But
exactly. That's what
they just couldn't quite get it done near the end of the season. I think the Bulls, they're in the box seat though, aren't they? Even with without Kane Moody, without Kutli Aronsa, they have shown that they've got like a really, really strong foundation. Villy LaRue, I know that he went off the field late in the last game.
I saw that,
There's a bit of a concern about whether or not he's going to be all right, but I assume he is. And,
we need it.
You know, they do. Like, at the end of the day, they can lose Aronsa, they can lose Moody, but if you lose Villy LaRue as well at the back, it might just be a little bit too much. But then saying that, if you've got the home field advantage and you've got, you know, the squad that they do at the moment, I think they're going to do all right. So, yeah, it's going to be interesting. Are you're going home side in that one? You going the Bulls?
Oh, yeah. I mean, I got about the Bulls for this game. I just feel like it's, yes, I mean, we want the game to be close, of course, at the end of the day. But, I mean, you got to bet the Bulls in this. You just got to, I mean, they've done pretty well this year. I mean, Cameron Hancom there, like, in terms of that semifinal, like, he was so good in that semifinal against Leinster. Like, he did everything really in the number 8 spot. So yeah, he's definitely someone I'd think of. I'm not sure if he'll do it, but if Razi will call him up, I think he deserves the shot. Because again, I'm trying to think of 8 as well for the box. Like there's, I mean, we have Evan Roos, we have.
They're missing Visa, which is the big one, isn't it?
Yeah, Visa's not available. Yeah, it's. But Kwaka could play at the 8. We've seen that before. I mean, there's options in how they can do it. I mean, even like Peter Smith at the Toy, he's been playing as an 8. In Japan, so there's an option there if you want to as well. So it's obviously, we'll see what happens, but yeah, I think for this game, I think I'm going to favor towards the Bulls. But like you said, Glasgow, they've had a really good regular season, and you can make the case they were arguably the best team throughout the regular season. They just kind of messed up in the final round. So it's just one of those where I think they deserve to be in the situation. I just don't know if they'll I don't know if it'll be enough to beat the Bulls though. I just think Bulls at home, that home advantage, just it's gonna be tough. So yeah, I'm gonna favor the Bulls, same as you, and yeah, we'll see if they can get the job done or not. But before we end this episode, and we saw obviously, of course, the TMO. Obviously, there's a few kind of changes that they made around that. So just want to get your thoughts on that. Like, what do you think about the change? Because they have done several things to kind of implement, and of course, just to keep this, just for you guys are aware, this isn't for like every game throughout this year. They're just testing it out within specific games. So, yeah, what's your thoughts on it?
Although Springboks Wales is also going to be under these new rules, as well as Barbarians Fiji. So pretty much the gist of it is we're going to end up with the game slowing down a little bit in some regards, but we're also going to have the game speeding up in other parts. So pretty much the main ruling that's being changed is the fact that you can go back further than 2 phases if there is a handling error that you want to go back to check, whereas previously, although we didn't see it in the best example for the Rugby World Cup because they actually went outside of the amount of phases that they were supposed to, but you're in that situation of they can now go back to where the play started, which is a long time. Like we could see 2 minutes and then they'll go back 1 minute 59 and say there was a handling error here, so that's going to roll back to no try.
This kind of just to give an example, like it's probably not on the same time frame, but something which I was like, I'm surprised they even went back to was that TJ Perinar kind of I think it was final on Perinar within that semifinal. Like it was kind of a while back, and their play was still continuing, but then they went back to that after like I think it was like 3 minutes or something. So it maybe kind of fits that kind of timeline of what they're looking into, but. Again, this is where I'm not sure how it works. Like, okay, if it's an injury purpose, like in terms of like foul play, like I'm not sure. Like, do you automatically go into it if it's like that big of a big thing, or do you kind of wait for a bit if it's not like a I don't know if it's just I don't know what a shoulder
Well, I
to
think
I don't know
the
the way it's going to be.
TMO now has more power, doesn't it? Because
Yeah.
it is able to stop in real time and say there was a handling error or there was a bit of foul play here rather than waiting till the
Yeah.
end of phases to go for it. So that's good in some regards that we're going to be able to see like things spotted straight away rather than having to go back and check them. But at the same time, like I thought that their big goal was to try and speed up play, not slow it down. And
Exactly.
there are chances that if we're going back a couple minutes that, you know, you're going to be searching for reasons not to give a try rather than to give one. But, you know, I do hope that it doesn't impact things too much. Like, I don't see how it can make it worse, but then it could.
It could make it worse. I think
we'll see.
Like the moment I'm trying to think of, I mean, this obviously maybe doesn't apply to the actual ruling, but was that Scotland decision against France that kind of like that if it was a try or no try in that Six Nations game, because I think the TMO went like over that, like I think like for like at least like 5 minutes, so it now could be even extended further because of the kind of the way this kind of ruling is in terms of how they're going to look at it in real time, or it could actually help that kind of to help that not happen again and kind of just be like, okay, no. It's going to be it's no try. We're going to move on, and that's the end of the game. So like it's just that's so this is where the rule can kind of have its benefits or like benefits or negative. Well, we'll just have to wait and see because, like we said, they are implementing it for the first time. So we'll see how this works. But hey, normally the rules that World Rugby have implemented without recent times have actually worked. Actually, I think like the big one being 50-22. I think that was introduced. I think back. I think it was a year and a half ago, something like that. It was like before the Rugby World Cup, I believe. But it was a good rule to implement because it adds a different thing to the game. So like these little rules, I think it's good to include. And again, this is a positive one, I think, because it helps the referees better with their decisions. But yeah, anyway, we'll leave it there, guys. Hope you guys enjoyed this episode. Again, like I said beforehand, let us know in the comments below your thoughts in terms of the international games as well as the finals that are happening this week. Make sure to click the like button. Subscribe towards both our channels, our respective channels, and subscribe towards this channel here as well. And yeah, see you guys next time.